Absolutely, one of the most intriguing aspects of our lives is how we've programmed ourselves to believe that the world we experience is primarily an outer game. It's an outer reflection of something that we have no control over, as opposed to an inner one. So think about that for a second. When you see something outside of you, an experience, something's happening to you, you're having a meltdown. I had one the other day over technology, which I often do. Who are you thinking is creating that? Does it just randomly happen? So I'm sure you've landed on this channel because you're seeking some magic and money and this remarkable financial freedom that I always talk about. The key to achieving that is understanding completely, really incorporating it, not just knowing it here, knowing it here. It's an inner game that drives the outer experience. There's nothing outside of you that you didn't create. I just did a video on that, so please reference that video because it's so key to allowing yourself not to blame yourself for all the experiences that you've had, but then to accept responsibility for them. And here's the thing, is our beliefs are driving that inner game. So a lot of times I experience people that tell me beliefs are facts, which they're not. They're just beliefs, and how they got created. We'll talk about that in a second. I want to really dive into this whole idea, this realm of beliefs, because I think what happens is if you begin to grasp how these beliefs came to be, I call beliefs either supportive beliefs or limiting beliefs, because at the end of the day, they're just beliefs. But it's important to remember that our beliefs play a very, very pivotal role in shaping our reality. So our reality is our experience. Everybody's reality is just what you believe, honest to goodness. Because two people could have the same experience. One creates this story, another person creates this story, and then they create a reality around it. Here's the thing, in my experience, I know this to be the case because I could see, I used to teach all around the world live seminars, and I could have two people sitting side by side in the same seminar, hearing the exact same words coming out of my mouth, the same information, the same tonality, the same words, and getting the same tools that I share on this YouTube channel. And yet, one embraces those tools and creates this positive change, while the other one doesn't. And I used to just go, like a Scooby-Doo. But the fact is that it isn't up to me. You know, that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. That's absolutely 100% true in all aspects of life. But let's use an analogy so you can really get a clue what that really truly means. Picture that you're building a house. There's two carpenters. Both are equipped with the same essential tools. Now, granted, as much flipping as I do, you'd think I know about all the tools, but let's just use the simple ones that I do know. They each have a hammer, they have a screwdriver, and they have all the necessary instruments, tools that they could need to build this house, right? They have the exact same toolboxes full of the exact same tools. But here's the kicker. If these tools aren't utilized, they remain just tools. You won't build a house by letting the hammer or the toolbox or any of the tools in the toolbox sit there idly. You have to pick up the tools and use them. So the same principle applies here. You need to be willing to use the tools. So I can give you all the tools on the planet of how you can have more magic and money in your life, 100%. But if you don't use them, they're just sitting there in the toolbox. And I think sometimes people get so wrapped up in learning more. And the fact is that you have to begin to use some of the learning, actually take action. In these cases, the tools that I share with you are designed to challenge your beliefs. So they're not building a house, they're demoing your beliefs. And your beliefs do not like that. No. They are not enjoying that at all. And I'm going to explain that to you. So what are these beliefs, though? Think about this for a second. How do they influence your life? Where do they live? What neighborhood are they living in, those beliefs? Well, they reside here in your mind. this incredible brain. This brain, I wish I was a neuroscientist because there is so much going on. The biggest computer at NASA cannot compare with what's happening in this computer that's inside of your skull. But that incredible brain of yours serves as the hardware. It's simply the hardware that's doing what you programmed it to do. Because this real driving force is your mind. The software, if you will. So if you think about it, there's ones and zeros when they program software, right? That is not the hardware, that's the programming. So the programming, I'm calling it your mind, you call it your consciousness. Because your consciousness, your mind operates based on what you've put into it. And because it's so good, just like you don't pay attention to what's on the program on a disk that you put into your computer or you download, right? You don't want to know about the ones and zeros. It just takes over automatically. Well, that's what your unconscious does. It's operating the software based on what you've told it, which is fantastic because if we had to think about everything that you have to do, driving, putting your shoes on, beating your heart, breathing, digesting, oh my gosh, we wouldn't have time to do anything else. So all of these unconscious behaviors and then subsequently the beliefs are fantastic. But think of this as your human operating system. Your consciousness, your mind is your human operating system. The better way to say it, to identify it, is choice. You have a choice about what you put into this operating system. There is a real serious distinction between doing and being, which is absolutely required for any kind of change. So you're being right now what you've programmed yourself to be. And in order to do something different, you're going to have to change. Bad news for some of you, good news for others of us. But there is this place where you're going to have to make that shift, and you're going to have to override the operating system that's currently there that you programmed. So it's okay. It's there for a reason. And then all of these limiting beliefs, which are keeping us exactly where we are, which are stuck for the most part, and at a very specific place in your life, you get to change it. But in order to do that, your little brain here, your mind says no. No. That's your ego right now. And it's there for one reason, and that is to protect you. Because you programmed all of this thinking and this reaction and these beliefs based on the fact that you had experiences and you reacted to those experiences. But just because they were decades ago doesn't mean that you've stopped looking at that experience on this subconscious level. So you have to get from here to this subconscious level and make that shift. The crucial thing to understand is that your brain doesn't think thoughts independently. Your mind can, but your brain is just that hardware that's being driven by this software that you've programmed. So if you hold that power of choice, which you do, you get to choose and run the operating system. You are the programmer, even though you don't need to know about ones and zeros because that's very over my head. You get to run the operating system. You get to do a software upgrade. The thing is that's going to keep you back or hold you back are the beliefs. These beliefs keep you from unlocking this potential. They keep you from unlocking the potential of this inner game. They keep you from updating the operating system. It's okay. It's there to protect you. It's not a bad thing because we need that in order to get to where we are. So it's done a really good job up until now, but we need some software upgrade. So how do you go about changing this inner game? Well, number one is what we're doing right here is you have to acknowledge that this is how it works. You have to be aware. Awareness is the key to conscious change. And if you acknowledge that this is how it works, then your next step is, well, hello, I can recognize that and then I can start making changes. Because those changes have to be conscious changes. Your magnificent mind, it is so beautiful and it is so wonderful and it is only doing its job right now, and that is to keep you safe. That's how it was programmed when you got here to this planet. It has only one job. And I refer to it so that I can give you some languaging. It's your ego. Don't get confused with ego being egotistical. That's not what that is. Your ego is the thing that is in the world to protect you. And it doesn't know that you don't need to be protected because it came from reptilian brains. It doesn't know that you need to be protected because your inner beingness, your true essence is already perfect. But it's going to react. That ego is going to react every single time when you try to do something different because its role is to keep you safe. And based on the programming that you've given it, even though it's unconscious at this point, it says, we aren't doing that. But because it operates on this outdated software, it's kind of like running Windows. I don't know if they had 1.0. It's been so long since Windows came on the scene, but it'd be like running a Windows 1.0 in a world of Windows 10, where you're trying to get things done and you can't figure out why nothing that you want to do in this evolved world that we live in is working. This disparity actually hinders your progress because not only are you confused and you're upset and you have all these negative emotions around it, and we'll talk about that in another video, but your life and your circumstances have evolved. So we don't need that old software, but your ego hasn't got the memo and it is still using that data from years and sometimes even decades ago. I did a little exercise with myself and a group of mine that I realized I'm still operating from when I was in high school on some of these money stories. It's just amazing how we hold on to those ideas at a very unconscious level. But here's the good news is when you initiate change, you can begin to see, if you're really paying attention, your ego pushing back. So if you've ever started something new, and I hear this phrase a lot of times, the devil made me do it, because let's say you say, I want to practice patience, and then all of a sudden everything in your life seems to test your patience, right? People say, the devil's testing me, right? None of that's true. It's your ego pushing back from change. It's so clever. Your ego is just so imaginative and so clever and knows exactly. It doesn't know it. It wouldn't do the same thing to me as it would to you because it knows and targets your vulnerabilities. It triggers your resistance and it keeps you stuck where you are. Because your ego's job is to protect you at any cost. But here's the thing is if you aren't aware of it, it's going to push back and then you're going to give up. But that can stifle your growth in this process. So first thing you want to do is just recognize that that's going to happen. Absolutely. And how does it happen? How does your ego resist change? Like I said, very clever, your ego. It employs so many different tactics. So here's a couple of them, examples. It discounts new information. So even as you're listening to this video, right, there could be a part of your ego saying, that's not true. We don't believe any of that. That's crazy. There's the inner you that knows it's true, but the ego says, that sounds crazy to me. Let's just keep doing what we're doing because we know that works. Not. It also can question the validity of anything that you hear based on past experiences, because those experiences it wants to use as precedent. And here's some really good news is your past is not your precedents. I know the Supreme Court and courts use precedences. We don't have to as human beings because we are constantly, if we choose to, in the present moment, creating the presence today. But your ego will say, nope, remember when that happened? Or unconsciously, it still has a belief around something that happened in the past that's negative and then uses that for today's experiences. And it might even link what you're learning now, right here in this moment, or any other time, to negative memories, convincing you that this path is only going to lead to disappointment, right? You've tried that stuff before. It didn't work. We are not doing that again. That's the ego saying, it's better to just stay safe and sorry than it is to go forward. and it can try to shoot the messenger. That's what I love more than anything, because I know I do that a lot when I hear somebody speak, but I'm not receiving the message the way that I want to from the messenger, whoever the speaker is. And trust me when I say I'm not everybody's cup of tea. So sometimes that's a really good excuse for people to say, oh, I don't like her. She reminds me of somebody else. So whatever I say has no bearing, because you're shooting the messenger. Because seeing someone deliver this new idea and linking them to someone in your past in order to fool you into believe that the messenger is the message is a really great trick for the ego. So another technique, the ego is so slick, is deflecting blame. Shooting the ideas down because of the untrustworthiness wherever you found the information, right? If it came out of a newspaper that you know you don't like, or a television program, or a news program, or any of that. So you automatically just say, oh, it's untrustworthy because of where it came from. Someone who wronged you in the past may have discouraged you from embracing change, so you have adopted that as your modus operandi at this point. Your ego will immediately kick into gear and remind you about that. And then there's always my favorite, the physical component. I think this one shows up more and more and more for people, because your ego can make you feel unwell in so many different ways. And that triggers things like headaches or fatigue. Oh, I'm tired. You say these things, you have a sudden urge to distract yourself because, I got a neck ache, I got a backache, I've been sitting too long. You find ways to be distracted. Your body, has an automatic connection to your phone or your Facebook. And that's all a body function because it's habitual. It's smoking, it's drinking, it's doing drugs, all of those things that your ego will say, this is better. This is fun. We like this. This is easier. So when you're trying to make progress, it's all about keeping you within your comfort zone. That's your ego's job. So believe me when I say, if you're going to make any kind of change in your life, I don't care what it is, stop smoking, go to the gym, be a better parent to your kids, you're out of your comfort zone. Your ego is going to raise its beautiful little head and say, hey, listen to me, it's all good. The key is to acknowledge that these ego-driven resistances, just notice them. And a really great phrase to say is, thank you for sharing. Just be kind, be simple. I mean, if you had somebody, yammering at you for something and you just really don't want to engage with them, you just say, thank you for sharing. You can say that to your ego. This acknowledges your ego's concerns, but it allows you to move forward and not be deterred by what it's trying to get you to pay attention. So just to wrap this up, this last bit of sage wisdom that I really, really love. If you are one of those people like me, which I have found myself doing this so many times over the years, and I'm a little bit of a know-it-all, so if you've spent any time on my channels, you know that. But I say this to myself a lot, or I say it out loud. Oh, I know that. I know that. I know that. And it's an immediate response. But I know here that I might want to really examine when I say that, if I know that, am I living it? Because that's how I then measure whether I really do know something. You might want to see how well you know something when you say, I know that, and say to yourself, am I living that? If I do know it, am I living that? Because if you're not living it, perhaps there is a disconnect there. So my best wrap up of this is strive to understand something through experience and testing. Don't just know it, live it. And that's what change is all about. Talking about it, thinking about it, reading about it is never going to get you to that place where you're actually going to embody it and live it. So live by the principles that you've learned, whether it's here or somewhere else, because in this manifesting of anything in your life, miracles, magic, money, it's the inner game that's going to create that. And guess who's in charge? Remember? You are in charge of the software. So let's give yourself an upgrade. Let's stop fooling around. Embrace this truth and declare right now, unwaveringly, with conviction, I live it. And if you want to know more information you want to schedule a discovery call with me, there's a link in the first comments below where I'd be happy to spend 30 minutes with you just going over what it is that you're looking for in your life and see if we can come up with a plan to help you absolutely create more magic and money in your life. And as I always say, y'all come back now. You hear?